let's go.
Yes.
Let's do it. Good luck. Everyone here is toss-up one. Pseudo-facility means is that the azo entity with these two entities diametrically opposite. The PEA and SEA parameters characterize the strengths of these two kinds of entities. The presence of these two entities, which serve as a cathode-dative constituent, stabilize rivals in the cathode-dative effect. The presence of each of these entities on opposite sides of the compound yields a push-pull compound. The presence of these two entities together will lower a compound's homo-lumo gap. These groups contribute plus I and minus I effects, with the exception
Oh, sorry. Electron donating and electron withdrawing groups?
That's right.
Good job.
Columbia, your bonus. This is your consummate relationship with the suffragette balance one on Armistice Day. Fails as they do by Sylvia here. Says she has cancer and throws herself downstairs. Presently, she is about England at all, who moves Berlin and England, who works in the Imperial Department of Statistics. This man is the protagonist of the parade and tetralogy.
Oh, it's this by Formatics Ford, but or
And
Kenneth
it's Christopher Tetchens.
Tetchens, yeah, that's
Christopher
right.
Tetchens is the protagonist of the parade and tetralogy by this author, the modernist novel, The Good Soldier.
Brown Ford, right?
Ford.
Ford.
Format's Ford is correct. Tetchens' relationship with Val and Monos is partly based on Ford's relationship with this woman, who in turn fictionalized the relationship with Ford in her novel, Format.
Oh, it's Lady Caroline Blackwood, maybe?
Sure.
Blackwood.
This is Jean Reese.
Okay. Ah, cool.
Also, two. An Orwell's biography claims that viewers became favorable to change when they looked at the images in this work. A critic proclaimed that nothing shows Wood's humanizing power better than the world of machines depicted in images accompanying this work. The 9th and 10th volumes of illustrations of this work are still of interest since they depict the secrets of the global manufactory. The 5,000 images that accompanied this work were hailed as the beginning of a philosophy of the object by Roland Barthes, who called their depictions of subjects such as coin making and iron forging a threat.
The encyclopedia.
That's right.
Good job.
Florida, you get a bonus. In an article about this place's enlightenment, Dag Herbjørn praises Anton Amo, whose Latin treatise in the art of philosophizing prefigures Kant's idea of a thing in itself. For 10 points each, name this continent, which Hegel claimed had no history in his lecture on the philosophy of history.
Africa.
Africa is correct. Anton Amo was from what is now this country. Another author who was born in England but raised here identified Hegel as part of a worldwide cosmopolitan tradition in his volume, Cosmopolitanism.
Yeah. Ghana.
Ghana is correct. Another philosopher from Ghana, Kwasi Wiredu, has spent much of his career arguing against this approach to African philosophy, in which the namesake individuals are seen as the bearers of the African philosophical tradition. An anthology by Henry Oruga popularized this term.
Ubuntu is a thing, but in African philosophy, we don't type of individualism.
Yes.
On the side or Ubuntu.
These are sage
Okay.
philosophy or sagacity.
Good point.
20 on the bonus. Here is toss-up 3. Two women carry water drawn from a fountain at the center of one of the 7 Greek paintings that Hubert Damisch called this city's perspectives, which depict nearly empty ideal cities to illustrate the principles of urban planning. A duke of this city commissioned a room. Sforza? Sforza is not correct. Duke of this city commissioned a room lined in wood in Tarsia, featuring promptly renderings of open cabinets and projecting benches, called his studiolo. A duchess of this city was depicted on a unicorn-drawn chariot facing her husband, who also appears kneeling in the Brera Madonna. The half-missing nose of that duke from this city is accentuated in Piero della Francesca's portrait of him with his wife, Battista Sforza. Federico de Montefeltro ruled this city, which titles a painting whose background features two maids rummaging through a cassone near a window. For 10 points, name this Italian city whose Venus is the subject of a Titian painting.
Urbino.
Pardon?
Urbino.
Urbino is correct, yes, 10 points.
Very good.
Columbia, your bonus. A famous crocker painted in this style, which was stolen from an Etruscan tomb
Red
in
figure, black
1971, depicts the corpse of Sarpedon being carried away by Hypnos and Thanatos. For 10 points each, name this style of Greek face painting that emerged in late archaic Athens. The Endokides painter is credited with inventing this style, whose early practitioners include the rivals Euthymides and Euphronios.
Is it red or black figure? Okay. Red figure.
You have chosen wisely. It's red figure painting. The notable red figure cup adorned with a painting of the dead Memnon is often nicknamed for this Michelangelo sculpture in St. Peter's Basilica, a marble depiction of Mary cradling Jesus' body on her lap.
Pietà.
Pietà is correct. Euphronios and Euthymides belong to this early set of red figure painters, which took advantage of the new red figure style to paint human figures in unusual poses and in unprecedented anatomical detail.
I think they're called the Berlin painters.
There will be pioneer group.
That's
related, but not the same.
4. In Ingeborg Bachmann's Molina, the unnamed protagonist...
Reset.
Thank you.
Sorry. In Ingeborg Bachmann's Molina, the unnamed protagonist writes a story about a character of this type from Vienna's Tagran neighborhood. During an outing with a character of this type, Honorio provokes and shoots a domesticated tiger in a novella by Goethe. In another story, a man charged with investigating some of these characters produces 3 twigs, respectively made of gold, silver, and diamonds, which prove his explanation of the condition of their shoes. A mouse who is also one of these characters, Pirlipat, eats the nut Krakatuk to undo a curse in the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. A woman who schemes to murder one of these characters is ordered to dance to death in red hot boots in a story by the brothers Grimm, who also wrote about 12 dancing ones.
Princesses?
Princesses is correct.
Great job.
Your bonus from Columbia answers the following about religious movements that became popular in the 1960s and 70s for 10 points each. The Maharishi Mahesh Yogi founded this international movement, whose practitioners received mantras tailored for them from generously paid instructors.
It's something yoga. Some kind of yoga, hatha yoga, hot yoga.
And
Okay, yoga.
This is transcendental meditation.
Oh,
TM.
that's right, yeah.
Abraham Maslow praised this LA-based cult founded as a drug rehabilitation program by Charles Derrick. Members of this cult verbally abused each other in regular therapy sessions called the game.
Is it Primal Scream? I don't think that's it, but Primal Scream.
This is Sin and Honor.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Another outgrowth of the human potential movement was Werner Erhard's EST organization, which L. Ron Hubbard claimed was a ripoff of this religion based on Albert Hubbard's self-help book, Dianetics.
Scientology.
Scientology is correct. You get 10 points.
Should have gotten the first part. Cool. That's fine.
5. In his stratagems, Frontinus credits this figure with being the first to divert a river so that the river could leave a city into 2 parts. Ammianus Marcellinus claims this ruler was the first person ever to castrate males, thus creating the first eunuchs. In some stories syncretizing her with Egyptian mythology, she is said to have been reincarnated as an egg-laying rabbit after death, making her the progenitor of the Easter Bunny. The Christian bishop Alexander Heslock claimed that polytheism was invented by this woman. In the Middle Ages, she was often...
Semiramis.
Semiramis is correct.
Good job.
Points for Julia. Your bonus. Pardon? The most notable artifact of this medieval kingdom is a golden rhinoceros made of foil with a wooden center. 10 points each identify this civilization, whose name means place of the jackals, which was the first class-based society in Africa. Its elite lived on top of a namesake hill, the middle class on a plateau, and the lowest below in a valley.
Oh, this is like is it Marina Kingdom? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. Marina Kingdom.
Pardon?
Marina.
This is the Mapungubwe kingdom.
Lovely.
The Mapungubwe dominated trade in southern Africa until the emergence of this great kingdom in the 11th century. It was home to soapstone bird sculptures and stone ruins said to replicate the Queen of Sheba's palace.
Great Zimbabwe.
Great Zimbabwe is correct. The Mapungubwe traded gold with this Swahili Coast Empire, founded in 960 CE by one of 7 sons of the Persian king of Shiraz. Its founder promised to acquire enough cloth to cover the island, only to renege on the deal.
Kilwa.
Kilwa is correct for 20 points. Get a score check for 1 quarter mark.
100 for Columbia and 25 for Florida.
You guys have it?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Continuing with also 6, one man by this name had a partial biography written by author Thomas Thistlewood and agreed to cease hostility by signing the Treaty of Petty River Bottom, which granted equal hunting rights. Another man given this first name, which literally means man born on Monday, became a church sexton and founded the settlement of African Town, now called Africa Town. That man arrived in Mobile Bay in 1860 after he was shipped from the port of Whydah on the Clotilda, the last slave ship ever to make a transatlantic journey to America. Zora Neale Hurston filmed that man with this name, whose surname was Lewis. Aquaman.
Good job.
Cujo is
Wow.
good job.
Good job. Kojo Lewis. Good knowledge.
This molecule's trans-conformation is stereochemically rigid and is visible in steroid skeleton where the A ring meets the B ring and the B ring meets the C ring. Then what's each name is molecule whose cis isomer can undergo a chair flip. This fully saturated molecule is the second most common molecule used as an H donor solvent.
You think so? Yeah. Cyclohexane?
One more time.
Cyclohexane?
No, this is decalin. Decalin can be synthesized by complete hydrogenation of this aromatic hydrocarbon, which has 2 joined aromatic rings. It is commonly found in mothballs.
Naphthalene. That's right. Naphthalene.
Naphthalene is correct. And derivatives of naphthalene modified in this manner are often used as surfactants. This chemical transformation blocks the para position in electrophilic aromatic substitution to direct reactivity to the ortho position.
Blocks, paraposition, direct, what? Like,
And
metallation?
they're sulfonated. Sulfonation.
Yes.
And on that bonus, the The article introducing this theorem discussed how uncertainty creates subjective probability distributions that later researchers Michael Jensen and William Meckling argued were strongly affected by agency costs. Alan Krauss and Robert Litzenberger's research on tax advantages led to the development of one of the two main models that attempts to adapt this theorem's ideal assumptions to real-world conditions. That model is trade-off theory, which rivals the pecking order model. Under assumptions of perfect market efficiency, no information asymmetry, and zero taxes or costs of transactions or bankruptcy, this theorem implies indifference between debt and equity. Capital structure.
The Modigliani-Miller theorem.
That is correct. The Modigliani-Miller theorem. Your bonus, Columbia. Pretend each answer the following about the mythical island of Wak Wak, which frequently appeared on maps in the Middle Ages. Geographers who wrote in this language often situated Wak Wak in China, inspiring many explorers to try to voyage there. The man who created the Tabula Rogeriana worked primarily in this language.
He mainly worked in Arabic, because he's Al-Idrisi, I think. Arabic.
Arabic is correct. Wak Wak is a faraway island whose inhabitants all had this trait. Penthesilea and Ptolemy were rulers they were warriors who had this trait.
Well, they're all female.
Yeah.
They're all women.
Indeed, they are all women. Perhaps the most distinctive feature of Wak Wak was this object in its center, from which fully formed humans sprung. It may help to note that many writers describe the terrible screams that came from it.
And maybe it's like a rock's pit where they... Okay, like a rock nest.
This is a tree of screaming human heads, of course.
Clearly dropped there by rocks, you know.
The origin of the Pokemon executive.
That would have been a great long con.
In addition, one of these pieces contained Heinrich Schenker's first published attempt at graphic analysis. An original manuscript of the last of these pieces unusually notates a phrase with upward stems despite it ending on a high A-flat 6. The fourth movement of one of these pieces opens with stark unharmonized Fs that ascend by an octave every 2 notes. A leap of a tenth from F to A characterizes the three-voice fugue theme used for the rest of that movement. In the last of these pieces, the right hand plays bouncy descending along short figures in groups of 4, while the left hand plays a syncopated G major second chords. That passage appears in the Arietta movement and has been described as a boogie-woogie. One of these pieces...
Are they just Beethoven piano sonatas?
They are just Beethoven.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because it was the Hammer computer.
Bonus Columbia, Thomas Jefferson referred to this man as a meteor of the hemisphere, teaching this early American mathematician who wrote the New American Practical Navigator in 1802, still published today as a practical encyclopedia of ocean navigation.
Have you sailed a boat recently, Noah?
Nope. Say like Byron or something.
Say that.
Byron.
This is Nathaniel Bowditch. Nathaniel married a woman from this great American family whose most famous member gave the Knight speech to nominate James Lane, and was known as the great agnostic for his three-god lecture.
Yes, Ingersoll.
Ingersoll is correct. As related by Josiah Quincy, Bowditch scandalized polite society when he took over running the business affairs of this university. Its earlier presidents included Increase Mather during the time of the state.
Harvard.
Right? That's right.
Harvard.
Harvard is correct. You get 20 points. How's it 9? An army charged with laying siege to this city, commanded by Viscount Wimbledon after the resignation of John Ogle, got slaughtered after they found an abandoned house full of food and drank themselves into a stupor. A group of conservative deputies based in this city wrote the Manifesto of the Persians, encouraging the king to abolish a document drafted here called La Pepa. Patrick Masterson captured the French Imperial Eagle during an attempt to liberate this city at the Battle of Barossa. The Trienio Liberal reinstated a constitution named for this.
Cadiz.
Cadiz is correct. Your bonus in this film, the twins Oliver and Oswald make time-lapse videos of the decay of organic matter. For example, featuring this 1985 Peter Greenaway film in which those twins, who work at the zoo, lose their wives in a car accident in which Alma loses her leg.
Have we heard of this director? Tell us.
This is a Z and 2 knots. Manola Dargis compared the time-lapse footage of a pig decaying in shade Garuf's upstream color to a time-lapse sequence of a seed sprouting in this Terrence Malick film in which Bill and Abby work on a
Tree of
Texas
Life.
farm.
Yeah, I think so. Tree of Life.
This is Days of Heaven.
Oh.
Sam Taylor Johnson, a member
Damn.
of this movement that also includes Tracy Evan and Damien Hirst, has made several time-lapse videos of still life decay.
YBA.
That's correct, the young British artists. Get 10 points on the bonus. Here's House of Death, for which you have. In the 1931 novel, sometimes considered the first in this style, Max Fisher changes his name to Matthew Fisher to win the hand of Helen Gibbons. That novel in this style is by George Schuyler. The essay that coined this style's name analyzes a bric-a-brac costume called Gashalier, created by the Ramilzay, and the Milestone Comics superheroes of Dwayne McDuffie. Mark Derry's 1993 essay on this style also features an interview with that author who wrote the sexually graphic novel Hog, and a novel about the ruined city of Bologna. Authors commonly associated with this style include Samuel R. Delaney and Octavia Butler.
Afrofuturism.
Good job.
Is correct. Points for Columbia. Here's your bonus. This author met his teenage muse Juliana in 1820 while her father was painting his portrait. Within which each made this notably handsome American poet. Juliana Bordereau kept this poet's love letters to her, which an unscrupulous critic later tried to steal from her Venetian palazzo.
Who's guys? Fresnel, maybe?
Answer.
Whittier. I don't know.
It was Jeffrey Aspern.
Okay.
This author wrote a preface to the Aspern Papers discussing the pros and cons of writing about celebrities who could possibly have existed as though they were real. His other novellas include The Beast in the Jungle and Daisy Miller.
James H.
Henry James is correct. James's preference to the Aspern Papers compares Jeffrey Aspern to his other artist characters, such as Hugh Vereker in this short story about an unnamed literary obsessive who seeks Vereker's secret from great Dean.
James short story.
And
The Aspen Papers.
it's called The Figure in the Carpet. 10 points on the bonus, and that is the half.
All right. Class time, Columbia 200, Florida 45.
Agreed.
11, Columbia, you guys ready to go?
Yep.
You guys ready to go?
Yep.
Good luck to both teams. Here's possible. One algorithm for approximately solving this problem begins by using randomized quad trees for firstly partitioning the input set and probabilistically computes a number of crossings in a runtime on the order of big O of n log n to the big O of the square root of d times c to the big O of c in power. That PPAS algorithm by Aurora and Mitchell was a significant improvement to another algorithm that approximately solves this problem by constructing an Eulerian multigraph through a minimum spanning tree and
TSP.
yes, like I said, that's approximately 10 points. Columbia, this phenomenon can be realized in a system of nuclear spins where the realization time for the interaction between spins is small compared to the realization time for the interaction between the spins and the lattice. For example, it's generated by this phenomenon, which in systems of magnetic dipoles results in dipoles pointing opposite the direction of applied field. This phenomenon can only occur if the energy of the system is bounded from above.
What do we think? Either anti-ferromagnetism or like overhauser? I think anti-ferromagnetism.
Okay, say that.
I don't really know.
Anti-ferromagnetism.
This is a negative temperature.
Oh, that makes sense.
The temperature can formally become negative because the derivative of this quantity with respect to the energy can become negative under the circumstances described above. This temperature is proportional to the log of the number of microstates according to Boltzmann's formula.
Yeah, go for it. Entropy.
Entropy is correct. Paramagnetic systems at low temperatures exhibit a shocking anomaly. A peak in the graph of this quantity versus temperature. This quantity peaks at the lambda point. The lambda point is the superfluid.
Viscosity, can't be that. Temperature. Density. Okay, sure. Density.
The capacity of a specific heat system, which is 10 points. Also, 12. Alright. Before this campaign, the losing force kept the farmer Henry Blocker and boarded the little crossings at Castleman's River, lost several supply wagons and had Big Sabbath Mountain after fighting an artillery road through 2 areas called the Shades of Death. This campaign is not named for a fort, but was directly caused by the capture of Trent's Fort 1 year earlier. In a subsequent expedition, which a man called the Half King allegedly explained, Thou art not yet dead, my father, before he ate the brain of a namesake slain general, in Jejumah de la Claire. Daniel de Beaujeu formulated the winning battle plan that died early in this battle, which is sometimes named for the body of water that was crossed in a failed attempt to reach Fort Duquesne. For 10 points, named this 1755 campaign, often named the British general, who was disastrously defeated during the French and Indian War.
Sullivan.
That was another Euro or Brass campaign. Going back to the okay. Correct. Well, the character in this play uses the phrase donkeys with stripes instead of zebras. Characters in this play reminisce about a woman with crooked toes, a gray dress, and soap suds on her brown hands. In this play, the character's motto is truly be cooked, spoiled raw, reads the Bible passage from the person hanging out loud after another character falls asleep. A character in this play imagines presenting his mother with a butterfly he caught and later pretends to drive her away with stones. While pretending that he's walking through a gate, a character in this play calls the character playing the gate guard a sport cat. The characters in this play spend money intended for a farm on a suit to address their white pen pal.
Blood knot?
Blood knot is correct.
Great work.
Here's your bonus trivia. To the following book, the Moratorian Fragment, the oldest extant listing of books of the New Testament for 10 points each. The Moratorian Fragment does not mention this epistle, which does not name its author, but has traditionally been attributed to Paul. This epistle calls faith the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen.
Yeah. What do you think? Romans. Oh yeah, that's what. Damn, I should have guessed that. I think it's Origin. Origin. Oh, damn. Oh, there's a 0. Yeah, well, we blew it. Or I blew it. Kept running asked. Oh well. Should have gone with my first guess.
One tradition names its members of this group written on the last 149,000 tales given Noah. Relatedly, there's this group from Tim's. In another story, God tells Adam would not be created yet no one else except for this group, which exists before Adam. After their opponent showed up alongside this group, Christians from Natron backed out a curse contest during the event of Rumahala.
What?
During the event of the cloak, God revealed a section of the purification verse that attributes the quality of Isma to them. The hadith of this
Just prophets? Small
No.
tele? Really? It's not the prophet infallibility?
No.
Okay.
What is that? The hadith of the two weighty things that the Muslims will never go astray following the Quran and this group. People with the title Sayyid belong to this group, which includes Fatima and the 12 Imams. For the points made, this group revered in Shia Islam, consisting of the seal of the prophets and his descendants.
Damn.
No, he's the
Ahlul Bayt.
Benji of Muhammad.
Ahlul Bayt, yeah.
I'll buy it. Absolutely.
I was going to say descendants.
Shouldn't
until-
have, well, this month usually just...
Continuing with pure positivity. Something a high Q medium with a continuous wave laser and using full-wave mixing via this effect allows for the generation of this effect's namesake frequency clone. Self-focusing as a consequence of this effect gives rise to a phenomenon in which a light pulse travels without diffraction through a medium, known as filament propagation. A modulator based on this effect.
I'm just saying the Kerr effect.
Kerr effect is correct.
Yes!
Columbia, your bonus. Answers the questions about the work of gay Abbasid poet Abu Nuwas, although Abu Nuwas was repeatedly locked up by the government of Harun al-Rashid. The two appear as pals in this collection that also includes the tale of the fisherman and the genie and several stories of Hudson Bennett.
Arabian Nights.
That's correct. Abu Nuwas was probably imprisoned for adopting a hedonistic lifestyle in his Qasidas, the Qasida form, which is also used in the Hang poems, and the Al-Burda is usually translated into English as this type of poetry.
Ode.
Ode is correct. Abu Nuwas may have also invented a kind of riddle called Mu'amma, which has also been attributed to this contemporary of his. This founder of Arabic prosody introduced vowel markings to Arabic through his Kitab al-Ain.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to say Al-Jahiz. That's not right. Al-Jahiz.
Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Faraki.
What? It's not Abu Hassan al-Ashardi this time?
This time, this. 16. Early in this opera, the violinists are given nearly impossible instruction to retune their instruments. 6 quarter notes to hit a low F. This opera begins with the orchestra, which is often cited as the largest of any repertoried opera, playing a fortissimo broken D minor chord, in which 2 16th notes are followed by a chord sustained over 2 measures. The title character of this opera decides to try to dig up a sacred axe after being inaccurately told that another character has been trampled by horses. A polychord made with E and C-sharp major chords represents the title character of this opera. After a frenzied dance, the title character of this opera falls dead as her sister cries a famous no, Also, were to come inside the palace of Mycenae, which at once in this three-part Strauss opera whose title character encourages her brother Orestes to murder their mother, Clytemnestra.
Electra.
Electra is correct. Columbia, your bonus. In an iconic sculpture, this king is depicted pouring a goblet of water on the ground, showing that he no longer considered himself subject to the Burmese lords of the Hindu dynasty. This great ruler of the Ayutthaya kingdom, known as the Black Prince, who was taken hostage as a child by the Burmese king Bayinnaung, only to return and reclaim his homeland.
Oh, no, it's Toxin the Great? No, it's not him. Nariswan, maybe? Oh, I like that, actually. Nariswan.
Nariswan's correct. The battle between Nariswan and Crown Prince Mingi Swa in 1593, widely known as the Battle of this Animal. Much earlier, the Indian king Porus rode one of these war animals against Alexander the Great in the Battle of the Hydaspes.
Elephanto.
Yes. Elephant is correct. This Thai state was a tributary to Burma during Nariswan's childhood. The possibly forged Kamahine inscription, dated to 1292, is a description of this kingdom, considered the first independent Thai state.
Sukhothai.
Sukhothai is correct for 30 points.
Nice. Thank you.
17. A philosopher from this school was elected Strategos of Tarentum 7 times and formulated a thought experiment asking if he could thrust your staff through the edge of a limited universe. According to Nicomacheus of Gerasa, this school's second leader proposed the anticon, or counter-Earth, to justify the first non-geocentric model of the universe. This school also invented monads. After early members like Archytas, Philolaus, and the female thinker Theano, this school split between ethically orthodox Apus Matikoi and a branch that emerged from the Platonists. This school's founder conducted studies of string tuning, leading him to propose
Pythagorean.
Pythagorean school.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Points and this bonus regarding this piece commissioned by actor Lucien Petrie, the composer who claimed it is coming along, but it is such an unpleasant work. And when each name is work of incidental music, written several years after its composer's overture, page of it on the same play. This incidental music used that overture and also borrowed from the composer's melody for the
Okay, so maybe it isn't. It's not the right impression. Ruslan and Ludmilla.
This is the incidental music in Hamlet by Tchaikovsky. Shakespeare also inspired this orchestral work by Tchaikovsky. After seeing the first version of this overture fantasy, the volunteer wrote to him, "I play often, and I want very much to hug you for it." He's lovely.
Oh yeah, he does have that, yeah. Romeo and Juliet.
That's correct, Romeo and Juliet opens with a somber F-sharp minor theme in the woodwind representing this character. The development and agitated version of this character's theme mixes with represents the family's view.
Maybe Fire
Tybalt.
Mercutio,
Paris.
Tybalt, maybe.
Yeah. Tybalt.
This is Prior to Florence.
No, not Fire Talk, that's not right.
Okay, let's go.
2018, one of these archaeological sites contains a building called the Pompeion, where the Pan-Athenaic procession began each year, and was the original site of the Stele of Pegaso sculpted by Callimachus. Italian archaeologists recently discovered one of these sites at the village of Udinram in the Spot Valley, containing Gardic artifacts dated prior to the Gakara culture. At one of these places in Japan, visitors tried to lift the Miroku stone with one hand to test their virtue after they crossed the Ichigo-Hashi Grid. A large one of these sites circles a potter's quarter at the Hieranikos in ancient Athens. The oldest one of them in Europe may be Grosso Baba, and the sacred Oguroi on Mount Koya is the largest in Japan. The city of Florence is home to one of them, known as Hanagasana, while a more modern one features Jacob Epstein's Art Deco Sphinx sculpture.
Just a tomb.
No. For Oscar Wilde, for that points to name these kinds of places that include Père Lachaise and Paris.
Cemetery.
Irrelevant protest.
Sure.
You said two. Yeah, it's not
Part of your bonus. Though this was only the equivalent of Galileo, its semantics did not do so. These named this theorem states there are no generals who are expressible with radicals, motivations,
Table Rufini.
Charles Hermite proved in general solutions to such equations using equal functions, which are doubly periodic. The solutions to the coordinated degrees equation can be expressed using the Byers process of these functions.
Elliptic.
Elliptic is correct. This is mathematician who determined that all algebraic equations can be solved using modular functions. And the result came to the even complement of the image of a continuous math certainly across two, consisting exactly of independent functions.
Yeah.
Jordan, correctly.
Yeah. Jordan.
Well done.
Several populations of these cells are distinguished by their expression of ECA2 when circulating. These cells membrane the bubble to give a veiled appearance. These cells
Dendritic cells.
are correct.
The doctor's fucking in, baby.
Here is your bonus plugin. This woman here at is published attitude to Untitled Chapter in Modern Times, and a 2019 paper arguing for slow science who would keep on this paper for a year. While psychologists advanced the weak central coherence theory and promote autism explaining the enigma.
What's the namesake author's person? Baroness Cohen.
Taught this British psychologist to develop the extreme male brain theory of autism.
Baron Cohen.
Correct. Baron Cohen's theory of autism relates to his concept of the SP spectrum, with S referring to systemizing, and E, this cognitive faculty that involves the capacity to understand other person's perspective.
Empathy? Empathy.
Empathy is correct. Awesome. In an essay on display, William Hazlitt remarked that authority, the insolence of power is stronger than the beauty of necessity. A warrior in this display greets his rival by exclaiming that his wrath-heart dances and with nightly dreams where they kiss each other's throats. The woman in this play rejects an invitation to the line, angers my needs, I suck upon myself. After a character in this play refuses to expose his scars, his downfall is engineered by Brutus and Sicinius. In the first act of this play, Memenius quells public unrest by telling a fable in which the limbs rebel against the
Coriolanus.
Rule of bonus in 1959, a second manifesto for history. Excommunicated insufficiently marks authors like Raymond Queneau and Jacques Prévert. Movement manifesto was written by the author of the Magnetic Field and Opera.
Surrealism.
Correct. Surrealism announced by Andre Breton. Instead, published in the journal Documents, edited by this founder of the Society of Safar. His transgressive writing includes the pornographic novel The Story of Pi.
Bataille.
Correct. Documents will launch a counterattack against Breton, and an entry template made for one of these objects. A surrealistic technique took its name from a sentence about one of these objects that brings the mind.
What is it? It's like a door? Is it a door? I don't know. That's right.
Door.
I didn't.
That is the first game. What is our final score?
Florida, everyone ready? Columbia, everyone ready?
Better than ever.
Good luck to both teams. Here is toss-up 1 of Finals 2. This functional group is created when dimethylallyl diphosphate is dimerized to chrysanthemic acid, the precursor of permethrin. De Mayra and Zamoniak developed modifications of a reaction that adds a hydroxylated version of this functional group. That reaction uses ethyl magnesium bromide and titanium isopropoxide. The enzyme that creates this functional group catalyzes the rate-limiting step of the Yang cycle and is called ACC synthase.
Alkane?
No, -5.
That's fine.
Alkane is not correct. Bromodiethyl malonate in DBU adds this group on the 6,6 bonds of fullerenes. Another reaction that adds this functional group was made stereospecific by Charette using binol derivatives. That reaction reacts with diiodomethane. That reaction reacts diiodomethane with a zinc-copper couple to generate a carbenoid, which then reacts with an alkene. For 10 points, name this functional group that is added by the Kulinkovich, Bingle, and Simmons-Smith reactions, and that contains 3...
Cyclopropane.
Cyclopropane is correct. Florida, here is your bonus. In 1994, the Florida legislature passed a bill providing $1.5 million for survivors of an event in this town after lobbying by a group led by Arnett Doctor, whose mother survived that event. For 10 points each, name this Florida town, the site of a 1923 massacre that cleared out its majority black population after a false rape accusation.
Rosewood.
Rosewood is correct. Florida native George Starling, who moved to New York and became a train porter, was profiled in this Isabel Wilkerson book depicting the Great Migration.
Oh, The Warmth of Other Suns.
Is correct. The Warmth of Other Suns also followed Ida Mae Gladney, the wife of a sharecropper in rural Mississippi who moved to this northern city, where many African Americans lived in the Bronzeville neighborhood.
Chicago.
Correct for 30 points. Toss-up 2. A pair of characters in this novel smuggle bullets by sewing them into goats' anuses. A character in this novel washes her bloody face into a drink before serving it to 2 feuding military commanders and weighs bodies from dead baby Hollow to determine her lucky gambling bets. While having his scrotum sewn back together, a character in this novel is told to tough it out like Uncle Arhat, who was skinned alive by enemy soldiers. That character has a growth spurt after eating the flesh of wild dogs that had earlier devoured people from his village. This novel reveals that urine is the secret ingredient in the honeyed taste of wine produced by its central family, who operated...
Red sorghum?
Red sorghum is correct for 10 points. More toss-ups like that, we're going to get banned from Twitch. Here is your bonus floor. Answer some questions about the Gutai art movement in Japan for 10 points each. Gutai was founded during this decade in reaction to the realism of the reportage art movement. British pop art was kicked off by the This Is Tomorrow exhibit in this decade, during which Picasso painted Massacre in Korea.
1950s.
1950s is correct. At Gutai exhibitions, Atsuko Tanaka wore an extremely heavy dress adorned with 200 of these objects. These objects make up Monument 1 for V. Tatlin by Dan Flavin.
Lights.
That's correct, yeah, lights or light bulbs. Gutai's co-founder Shozo Shimamoto was best known for art in this medium, including his Nengajo. He was inspired by collagist Ray Johnson, who pioneered art in this medium with moticos.
Flowers. Paper screen?
Answer?
Mud.
Is it mail art or postal art? Correspondence art? You get 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 3. Description acceptable. The hero of this military campaign was rewarded with 2 suits of chainmail, but its weight caused him to drown, and a fisherman found his magical corpse. A local prince named Demian used a gilded idol kept in a basin of water to defend his fort during this campaign, where a tribute known as Yasak was enforced on local...
The Russian conquest of Siberia.
That is correct for 10 points. Fine, Buzz. Columbia, your bonus. The founder of this group wrote a book explaining how their methods involve searching for violence at the threshold of detectability, or the place where things hover between identifiable and not. 10 points each. Name this research group led by Eyal Weitzman, which examines the remains of buildings and other structures as part of their goal to expose human rights violations and political violence around the world.
My brain's out of guesses. What is it?
Answer? Pardon?
Is it?
Called forensic architecture.
Oh, okay.
Forensic architecture's analysis of the buildings destroyed by this country's missile strikes exposed their so-called Hannibal Directive, which was used during the Entebbe raid.
Israel.
Feels correct. Forensic architecture often constructs this kind of reference work to trace smoke patterns coming from bombs. This kind of reference work inspired a sextet composed by the fictional bisexual musician Robert Frobisher.
Recognize what these things? Sure. Blueprint.
A cloud atlas.
Oh.
And on the bonus.
What?
Toss-up 4. The opening of a work in this form suggests that the title figure may have been born when a bubble of mud filled with spirit became a baby. A theological text in this form, named for Camille, presents the apocalyptic eschatology of Al-Nafis, the chief physician of 13th century Cairo. A work in this form centers on a man whose life is divided into 7 stages of 7 years, illustrating the author's theory on how Shahada allows one to achieve mystical union with Allah. That Andalusian response to Al-Ghazali in this format features a boy raised by a gazelle on a desert island.
A novel?
A novel is correct.
Ah, yes.
Philosophicus Autodidact.
Yes, that's right. Good buzz.
Here is your bonus, Florida. This theory uses a spherical top-hat collapse of an overdensity to obtain an expression for the number of collapsed objects exceeding a certain mass, its namesake mass function. For 10 points each, identify this empirical approach to deriving the number density of galactic halos per unit mass, which was first elucidated by its namesakes in a 1974 paper.
Press-Schechter?
Press-Schechter is correct. The Press-Schechter formalism agrees well with both numerical simulations and measurements of the abundance of these objects, the largest gravitationally bound structures in the known universe.
Filaments.
Filaments. No.
Galaxy.
Are they gravitational?
I think.
Galaxy filaments.
They're galaxy clusters.
Sorry, that's what I thought.
One way of determining the mass of a galaxy cluster is by observing CMB photons scattered by the cluster's hot gas. The shape of the distortion generated by this effect is fixed and therefore identifiable, and the amplitude allows for a measurement of the temperature and thereby of mass.
Suniev-Zeldovich.
Suniev-Zeldovich is correct for 20 points. Toss-up 5. A memoir by this thinker contains such amusing chapter titles as Manners Deployed for Academic Zing and Manners Demanded for Academic Ineptitude, was criticized for labeling this thinker's colleagues deadbeats and fossils. In an interview with Time magazine, this thinker opined, "We used to think our fate was in our stars." He opened one of his books by noting that he'd never seen one of his colleagues in a modest mood. This author of Avoid Boring People once called Craig Venter Hitler. He resigned as director of Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory after claiming that Europeans are superior to Africans in...
Watson?
Watson is correct. It's James Watson. 10 points for Florida. And this bonus. Answer the following about helpful little men in mythology for 10 points each. In the myth of these people, the Alushes are helpful gnomes who come to life to protect crops when tiny clay figurines are planted in the field with a heart made of honey. The Bakabs reside in the four corners of the world and send the Alushes to help in this myth system.
Maya. Bacabs are
Sure.
Mayan.
There are. The Dark Elves of Svartalfheim include the sons of Ivaldi, who made this spear wielded by Odin and obtained by Loki after he cut off Sif's hair.
Gungnir.
Gungnir's correct. These 2 or 3 foot tall Hawaiian people were rumored to come out at night and build things like the Alekoko fish pond wall and the Kikiaola ditch at Waimea, which is named after them. They destroy their projects if they are spotted by anyone.
Kanaka.
Hidden people.
They are called Menehune. You get 20 points. Toss-up 6. After 2 pesante statements of the Russian sailor's dance theme, this instrument plays offbeats to accompany the English horn and clarinet in Reinhold Glier's ballet The Red Poppy. Aram Khachaturian said his passion for major and minor seconds came from hearing the radio of folk guitar, the kalancha, and this instrument as a child. Violins play an andante A sharp E sharp melody, triangle, aperture. This instrument plays a fast 3/8 ostinato under boisterous trombones near the end of the annual Chabrets España. Tambourine is correct for 10 points.
Good job.
Your bonus, Florida. Indite in the Revenger's tragedy possesses the traits of the Revenger and this other character type, which was similar to the Machiavel and often depicted as melancholy. For 10 points each, name this cynical type of character common in Elizabethan and Jacobean drama, exemplified by Bosola in The Duchess of Malfi. The disguised Duke Altofronto exemplifies this character type in a play named for it.
Atheist?
This is a malcontent.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Altofronto disguises himself as the cynical courtier Malavol in The Malcontent, a play by this Jacobean satirist who sided with Thomas Dekker against Ben Jonson in the War of the Theaters.
Whatever you think.
Ford?
This is John Marston. This Shakespeare villain who duplicitously tells Othello to beware the green-eyed monster jealousy is often described as a malcontent.
Iago?
Yes, 10 points.
All right.
Very good, Iago. Toss up 7. Many texts on this practice have been translated into English by Fabrizio Pregadio. According to a canonical text, a teacher of this practice should drink the blood of a white chicken with his student to mark its transmission. In conjunction with abstinence from grains, this discipline is used to expel the 3 corpses and the 9 worms. This subject is treated in the alchemy as well.
Yes! Good job.
Go off.
Chinese alchemy.
Good job.
Your bonus, Florida. For 10 points each, answer the following about the various ways a CPU may interact with peripheral devices. One of the most common ways is this technique in which the registers of the peripheral devices are put into the same addresses as that of the CPU mechanism of storage. It is a hallmark of RISC architecture.
It's like, what do they want? It's like, no, it's not what it is.
Answer,
Shared
please.
memory?
This is called memory mapping. To let the processor know when an input needs to be processed, a peripheral device will often send one of these signals to the processor. CPUs have a namesake handler for these things, which can be thought of as low-level alternatives to events.
Interrupts.
Interrupt is correct. One of the drawbacks of using interrupt handlers is that the CPU will have to context switch, meaning it will need to swap out values from these storage spaces and load new ones. These structures can store addresses or floating point integers.
Addresses or floating point integers? Pointers?
Answer, please.
Pointers?
These are registers.
But they already
None of
said
the
that,
bonus.
didn't they?
Not in that one?
I thought they said it in the lead-in.
It's all good.
Sorry, Leo,
Yep.
you were right.
Okay, 10 on the bonus.
Alright.
It's okay. You know, you're right. It's just, I thought they said that already.
Toss up 8. This modern-day country was home to the bank robbers Karl Mazar, John Maxim, and a husband and wife duo called the Foster Gang. A manhunt to find them led to the 5-shilling rebellion. A longtime politician in this country referred to his life philosophy as holism, a notion that all organisms were interdependent. He ran on a pro-war ticket in this country to defeat Barry Herzog and spoke at fundraisers for Israeli Zionist leader Chaim Weizmann. The Sauer Commission and the Fagan Commission published reports arguing for opposite policies in this modern country, where the Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi ran an ambulance corps at the...
South Africa.
That's correct. South Africa for 10 points. Colombia, your bonus. A paper by this anthropologist examines Sinhalese rituals to argue that the redundancy of healers' chanting ultimately does create relief in patients. 10 points each. Name this Sri Lankan-born anthropologist who wrote The Magical Power of Words. He developed the galactic polity model in several books on Southeast Asian Buddhism, such as World Conqueror and World Renouncer.
Oh, it's God. Krishnamurti.
Stanley Tambia.
Oh, never mind. Different guy. Oh,
Tambia's The Magical Power of Words begins by discussing the ethnographic theory of language from this 2-volume book published in the 1930s, which describes Trobriand systems of land tenure and agricultural tilling.
Coral Gardens and their magic.
Coral Gardens and Their Magic is the last book in this anthropologist's trilogy about the Trobriand Islanders, which began with his Argonauts of the Western Pacific.
Malinowski.
Malinowski's correct for 20 points.
Gotten that correct. Well,
Toss-up 9. Theoretical calculations in this regime typically assume isentropic conditions, which makes it possible to calculate quantities as a function of their ratio to their stagnation equivalents, the ratio of specific heats, and a dimensionless constant. Scaling various physical quantities by the square root of the quantity 1 minus the square of a certain dimensionless number makes it possible to reduce problems in this regime to a simpler one, a technique known as the Prandtl-Glauert transformation.
Compressible?
Compressible solution. Points.
good job.
Florida, your bonus. The artwork of this culture shows a spider god called the Decapitator holding a knife and a severed head, an indication that these people practiced human sacrifice. For 10 points each, name this civilization whose adobe temple at Huaca del Sol near Cerro Blanco is considered by many to be the largest pre-Columbian structure in South America. Moche is correct. The site of Quilmes is the largest pre-Columbian ruin in this modern country, where the Cave of Hands is a relic of the Tehuelche people. Those people's giant footprints inspired the name of Patagonia, which this country shares with its smaller neighbor to the west. Argentina is correct. These are believed to have been the first people of coastal Brazil, or at least the first Amerindians encountered by the Portuguese, as the Guarani lived inland. The German soldier Hans Staden, captured by them in 1552, propagated the belief that they were cannibals.
Zingu? They're Brazilian. Yeah. Zingu?
These are the Tupi. 20 points on that bonus. Here's toss-up 10, after which we'll have halftime. A mixed media work at this museum depicts a figure behind some red wooden fence panels with random letters stenciled on them. That work is Alvin Hollingsworth's Trapped. A Jefferson Pinder sculpture at this museum, which is curated by Jocelyn Serwer, consists of wood from a presidential inauguration platform recycled into the shape of a Mercury space capsule. This museum's bottom floor contains an exhibit of 609 bricks with names on them looming behind a sculpture of a different president, while its top floor is arranged in a circle around a wooden caryatid veranda post on loan from Munich. That sculpture by Olowe of Issei inspired this museum's corona, which is angled to match the adjacent Washington Monument. For 10 points.
The African American History Museum?
Yes. That's what I need.
Awesome.
National Museum of African American History and Culture, African American History, or African American History Museum. You get 10 points in this bonus.
I still haven't been there.
This poem adapts Virgil's comparison of Neoptolemus to a snake after shedding its skin in a description of Rodomonte, who is literally wearing armor made of snakeskin. For 10 points each, name this Italian Renaissance poem by Ludovico Ariosto, in which the title knight goes insane from his unrequited love for Angelica.
Orlando Furioso.
Is correct. Rodomonte is ultimately slain by this ancestor of the d'Este family after interrupting this man's wedding feast. This knight rescues a princess from a water-dwelling orc while riding a hippogriff.
Okay. And all the paintings, Tancred? Tancred?
This one is Ruggiero or Roger.
Okay.
Ariosto drew on this Catullus poem for his description of Bireno ditching Olympia. Peleus' wedding to Thetis is the frame story of this Epilion, which is mostly a treatment of Theseus' abandonment of Ariadne.
64.
That is correct. 64 for 20 points. That is half.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good luck, everyone. Awesome number.
Just kidding. Here's toss-up number 11. While sneaking into the wilderness to read books, a character created by this author has an epiphanic experience upon hearing an echo of his voice in a valley. In a novel by this author, the protagonist cuts down a tree to cross a river, leading him to meet the elderly Queen Mab and find a wooden box that he cannot open. He wrote a novel in which a character is urged to hold while opening a closet door. This author wrote a novel whose title character escapes a panther attack while investigating the death of his friend Waldegrave.
Oh.
His most popular novel begins with the narrator describing her father's spontaneous combustion and her relationship to the wealthy...
Brown?
Charles Brockton Brown is correct.
Good job. Sick buzz.
Here is your bonus, Florida. This composer and his teacher were pitted against each other in rival concert series. However, they refused to play along, dining together and programming each other's music at their own concerts. 10 points each named this prolific composer of 42 symphonies. To protect himself during the Reign of Terror, this composer also wrote several choral pieces in honor of the First Republic, which debuted at Strasbourg Cathedral.
Piscini.
Ignaz Pleyel. Pleyel was a student of this Austrian composer, the father of the symphony.
Yeah. Haydn.
Haydn is correct. During one of those rival concerts, Haydn premiered this penultimate London Symphony. In measure 2 of this E-flat major symphony, the low strings and bassoons play a somber theme with the same first 4 notes as the Dies Irae.
Same note as the Dies Irae.
86.
This is the Drum Roll Symphony, or number 103. 10 on the bonus. Here is toss-up. Nope. Here is toss-up 12. A method of detecting these things is the multiplexed IPlex Gold assay, which uses MALDI-TOF. A database of these things assigns each of them an RS number, which appear in the ID section of a VCF file after using a calling algorithm. An assay named for these things plots an output with position on the x-axis and a log-R ratio on the y-axis. Those are arrays named for these things. In a type of experiment, each of these things appears as a single dot on a Manhattan plot. Tag ones.
SNPs?
SNPs are correct. Single nucleotide polymorphisms. This Frenchman was the first and most notable of the coureurs de bois, or runners of the woods, and his route was followed by Jean Nicolet. 10 points each named this explorer who lived among the Huron Indians and became the first European to see the Great Lakes, journeying to all 5 with the possible exception of Lake Michigan.
Okay, that's all.
This is Etienne Brulé.
Brulé, yeah, that guy.
The first school for the Abenaki was established by this French Jesuit, whose support for Abenaki raids on the English was revealed by Thomas Westbrook. Like the later Father Le Loutre, he failed to check English expansion in the course of a namesake conflict.
Rail, yeah, that's his name. Rail.
Yes, Sebastian Rail. The expeditions of Brulé and Nicolet paved the way for this missionary to become the first to map the northern 73 fur trader
LaSalle?
Marquette, Father Doc Marquette.
Oh, yeah, listen, he was a missionary. LaSalle was very much not. Oops.
Toss-up 13. The artist Joseph Severn is best known for portraits of 2 men of this occupation. A man of this occupation uses an open umbrella to patch the ceiling of his attic room in the most notable painting by the Biedermeier artist Karl Spitzweg. Henry Wallace's first successful painting depicts the death of a red-haired man of this occupation. William Adolphe Bouguereau painted 2 men of this occupation watching a naked man knee another naked man in the back and bite his neck. Thomas Phillips painted a man of this
Owitz.
Owitz are correct.
I thought it was...
That is 10 points.
I thought it was the...
You did Owitz specifically, so good job.
Oh, that's what Dante is.
It's true. Here is your bonus Florida. The medieval Italian philosopher Agostino Nifo attempted to resolve several paradoxes. For 10 points each, Nifo wrote several insolubilia, the term for analyses of the paradox in which one of these people says, this statement is false. The Epimenides paradox starts with the premise that all Cretans are these people.
Liars.
Liars are correct. One of Nifo's insolubilia concerns the paradox of the courts, in which this Greek sues his student Euathlus after Euathlus does not pay for rhetoric lessons. His book, Truths, is partially preserved by other philosophers. Answer, please.
Xenophon.
This is Protagoras. Agostino Nifo's analyses of paradoxes partly drew on a treatise on economics attributed to a member of this ancient school of thought. Leaders of this school included Strato of Lampascus and the botanist Theophrastus. Answer, please.
Peripatetic.
That's correct.
Good.
20 on that bonus.
Yes.
All right, let's give him a shot.
Toss-up 14. This document appears in the title of an essay that distinguishes between knowingly taking LSD and having a nice trip, and unknowingly taking LSD and feeling insane for no discernible reason. That essay, which quotes the biblical proverb, "The fathers have eaten bitter fruit, the children's teeth are on edge," claims that patterns of relationship are what mammals are about, to call the drafting of the document historic events of the 20th century. Meetings with financier Carl Melchior influenced a book about this document that provoked a comprehensive rebuttal by economist Etienne Montu. This document, Defect Gregory Bateson contrasted with the development of cybernetics, was called Carthaginian in a 1919 book. For 10 points, What document's impact on Germany was the subject of John Maynard Keynes's
Treaty of Versailles.
The Treaty of Versailles is correct. Wild, Ada accidentally reveals that her well-behaved cousin Chinyere's brother is actually her son. For 10 points each, name this Nigerian author who collected stories like Glory and Who Will Greet You at Home in her 2017 book, What It Means When a Man Falls from the Sky.
Who's
Answer?
Emma Chada. Right.
Leslie Arima.
Okay.
Arima won the 2019 Kane Prize for African Writing for a story in which all women are required to live this way until they marry. Reverend Hartman sees Kate Swift praying in this way in Sherwood Anderson's story, The Strength of God. Answer,
On her
please.
knees.
Nude.
Okay.
Naked. Kane Prize is co-sponsored by all 4 Nobel Prize in Literature winners from African countries. Wole Soyinka, Nadine Gordimer, J.M. Coetzee, and this deceased author who set the story Zabalawi and the novel Midak Ali in his native Cairo.
Mahfouz.
Naguib Mahfouz is correct for 10 points.
Interesting use of the present tense there.
Still sponsored by him. Toss-up 15. This author asserts that the dream is a second life at the beginning of an autobiographical narrative in which he has visions of a sacred table around which 7 warring Elohim sit. Umberto Eco's 6 Walks in the Fictional Woods diagrammed the jumps in time in another story by this author, whose protagonist fails to marry the title character due to his obsession over a dead nun named Adrienne. Julia Kristeva's Black Sun takes its title from a description of melancholy in a poem from a sonnet sequence by this author. This earliest French translator of Goethe's Faust recorded
Nerval.
Nerval is correct. 10 points for Florida.
I couldn't remember his name.
And this bonus, answer the following about meditations in music for 10 points each. The meditation theme appears in Act 3 of this opera by Jules Massenet as the white nuns attend to the dying title character.
Manon?
It's Thais. The album Meditations is considered the spiritual follow-up to this modal jazz album. This album's first track opens with a gong clash and features the primary artist repeatedly chanting this album's 4-syllable title.
I Love Supreme.
10 points for Love Supreme. Sonic Meditations is a series of exercises by Pauline Oliveros, who coined this 2-word term for meditative music participation and improvisation. Oliveros founded a band by this name that specialized in performing in large, resonant spaces.
Deep Listening.
Deep Listening is correct for 20 points.
Alright, let's finish one.
It's an editor-pleasing get, I assume.
Names are hard.
All right. We will resume with toss-up 16. Good luck to both teams. Description acceptable. This substance was first used by a man who always slept near a bull, a horse, and a deer, so that their bellowing, whinnying, and bleating would wake him up if anyone approached him. Learned men known as agari supervised the preparation of this substance. A scholar named Andromachus drew on the work of Celsus
We have to clear.
in modifying the formula for this substance by adding viper flesh to it. Sources state that a man named Bituitus had to assist, or Bituitus. Yeah, I can accept that.
What is that?
It is the antidote of Mithridates, which is the primary answer line. You get 10 points on a very good buzz. Well done.
Oh my god.
Fucking king.
Florida, your bonus. This model predicts a sigmoidal relationship between substrate concentration and velocity, and enzymes that obey it show a straight line on a line work plot. 10 points each. Name this model of enzyme kinetics that assumes the immediate complex concentration doesn't change during product formation.
Michaelis-Menten.
That's correct. When the Michaelis-Menten was the answer. When the substrate concentration is equal to K sub m, the velocity of the enzyme is equal to this fraction of the maximum velocity.
Is it 1 over square root?
I think I like this second. 1 over the square root of 2.
1/2.
Oh wow. We overthought it.
Pencil and paper ready. On a Lineweaver-Burke plot, the y-intercept of the line is equal to this value. You may express your answer as a function of V max and K sub m.
Probably bigger than 1, right?
1 over V max times K sub m.
1 over V max.
Okay.
Haha.
Tricky.
Gotcha. 10 on the bonus.
Yeah, damn.
Toss of 17.
Yeah.
A five-stage system devised by G. Evelyn Hutchinson, this process does not occur in one category, but has a frequency that varies with temperature in the other four. A temperature-driven form of this process is often characterized by the Wedderburn number. This action does not occur in cranogenic systems due to the intervention of an underlying spring. Structures in which this process does not occur may have purple sulfur bacteria grow in their stable chemocline. The hydrological global retention time is accurate when this process occurs frequently, which can be induced by using jet aerators.
Mixing of water.
That's all I need, yeah, lake mixing. 10 points for Columbia, good buzz. Your bonus. This country's post-war chemistry community evolved parallel to, but separate from, both the Western and Soviet blocs, resulting in the McMurray reaction being named for its American third discoverer. For 10 points each, name this country. A pioneering chemist from this country remarked that the results of one's chemistry should be published in journals of one's country to justify his hundreds of papers in the Chemistry Letters Journal.
Maybe Sweden, Denmark. Those could be. I'm gonna say Sweden.
This is Japan.
Oh wow.
This scientist's study of steroids and santonins helped create the pharmaceutical industry of China during and after World War II. This scientist is better known for accidentally finding that, after forming the hydrazone intermediate, excess water could be distilled away to improve the yield of the Wolff-Kishner reaction.
Guy Huang Minlan. Is that right?
It just say yeah.
Huang
Say-
Minlan.
Yes, this is a single guy, Huang Lan. Kenichi Fukuei became the first Asian person to win the Chemistry Nobel for his study of the highest occupied and least unoccupied examples of these things, which he termed frontier examples.
Emos.
The orbitals is correct, you get 20 points. Toss-up 18, a book by this English-language writer was the source for the plot of John Pickering's mythology-infused morality play, Orestes. This writer added an original passage praising communal property among the White Friars in a social allegory that was based on a book by Jacobus de Sissolis entitled The Game and Play of Chess. This occupant of the Red Pail at Westminster related an oft-repeated anecdote about a misunderstanding between a merchant who asked for eggs and a woman who called them Aaron. Translated a courtly romance by Raoul Lefebvre under the title Recueil of the History of the Way. This collaborator of Wynkyn de Worde gave Thomas Mallory's major work the title Le Morte. He is often credited with helping standardize English spelling with his publications, which include an edition of the Canterbury Tales. For 10 points, name this publisher who introduced the printing press to England.
Braxton. Claxton.
Axton.
Paxton. William Paxton.
I tried.
The other answer. Along with Cecil Fataman, this man gave a speech after drinking blood of a black pig in the forest of Bois Cayman. Named this former coachman, who presided over a voodoo ceremony in 1791, which spurred an early black slave revolt around Le Cap in French Haiti. One is correct. This black Spartacus led the slave revolt that succeeded where Doti Boukman failed, becoming governor general of an independent Haiti in 1801 before quickly giving way to his lieutenant.
Yeah.
Louverture is correct. This French abbot wrote about Saint-Domingue in his 1770 book History of the Two Indies, which contained chapters on the East Indies, South America, West Indies, and North America, and then a final chapter analyzing the future. Abbe Raynal. Bonus?
Alright, let's get some.
Toss-up 19. In Aegina, a wooden statue of this deity was designed in her temple by Myron, while the sculptor Alcamenes placed this deity in front of Nike. Like her aspect Melanoe, this deity is described as cloaked in saffron, and she may be identical with the Thessalian deity Odia. Still in honor of this god, called the Deipnon, was eaten once each month on the first day of a 3-day celebration. To placate this deity, a figure is instructed to bathe in a stream of water, put on dark robes, dig a round pit, cut the throat of a female sheep on a pyre, and retreat from the fire without looking back. First worshipped at Lagina in Caria, she is the only daughter of the Titan Perses, our goddess Estia. Entrails of sacrificed dogs were red to propitiate this goddess, who was known...
I'm gonna say Cybele.
Cybele is not correct. Who was known to the Romans as Trivia. Often depicted with 3 bodies, she is the dark side of the moon. For 10 points, name this Greek goddess of crossroads and witchcraft.
Hecate.
Hecate is
That's
correct.
a way to clue. Oh well. It's fine.
10 points and a bonus for Florida. The main conflict in this novel is between a police force led by Hassan-i Sabbah and Agent K9 against a mob that includes the Intolerable Kid and Uranian Willie. 10 points each. Name this non-linear novel in which a group of criminals take the form of viruses on Earth to recreate the conditions leading to the creation of the...
What? That's something I would like. But I don't know. Voyage Arcturus.
called Nova Express.
Oh,
With the novels The Soft Machine that exploded, Nova Express forms a trilogy often named for this writing technique developed by the trilogy's author and Brian Geisen.
Cut up.
Cut Up is correct. The Cut Up trilogy was written by this author, whose most famous novel describes the drug trade in a surreal version of Tangier called
Burroughs.
William S. Burroughs is correct for 20 points. The last toss-up. Toss-up 20. A man with this surname was accused of being but a remove from barbarism in a letter by William Welsh, which inspired that man's political enemies to charge him with misconduct. Another man with this surname led an attack on a settlement of buffalo hunters along with Isa Tai at the Second Battle of Adobe Walls, an early engagement in the Red River War. The kidnapping of a person with this surname, who married Peta Nokona and lived with her captors for 24 years, inspired the movie The Snow.
The Banshee woman. What's her name? Brown. Oh, fuck. Oh, well. I read a book about this.
Researchers, leader with this surname led the Quahati Band to
Oh,
Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where he is now buried. A man with this surname, also called Done Hogawa, was appointed by Ulysses S. Grant as the first Native American Commissioner of Indian Affairs and had the first name Eli. For 10 points, give this surname, also shared by the Comanche chief Quanah. Parker is correct.
Good job.
10 points.
Names are hard, people.
But insist on having them. Here's your bonus. Florida. Between 1992 and 2007, the population of creatures in India declined by over 99%, a drop attributed to their consumption of the drug diclofenac. For 10 points each, name these creatures whose shrinking population has been a huge blow to the Parsi community, who have been forced to adapt to their decline by using solar concentrators in an ritual.
Yeah. Vultures.
That's correct, vultures. Vulture decline has also forced more religious adherents in this region to turn to cremation instead of the sky burial tradition. The Dalai Lama is revered in a branch of Buddhism followed in this region.
Tibet.
Tibet is correct. After the death of a family member, adherents of Tibetan Buddhism observe rituals for the family member's soul for this length of time, which is the maximum length of time it takes to pass through the bardo.
No answer.
The answer, if you're curious, was 49 days or 7 weeks. But this is a much better ending. Congratulations to Florida on their championship.